Hey everyone, welcome back to Trek on the Tube, and yes, welcome back to yet another Star Trek review. Believe me, this channel was not created with the intent of being entirely comprised of reviews, and I will eventually get back to doing canon and lore videos, as well as species, among other things, but Star Trek Discovery is back, and when there's new Star Trek, I review it. It's tradition, okay? Alright, fair warning to anyone that's new to the channel, Star Trek Discovery is my least favorite of all the Star Trek iterations. And although there are quite a few episodes I gave high ratings to because I do congratulate their individual technical prowess, generally speaking I have difficulty reconciling the show with the universe in which it's set, let alone the time frame. Although, that might change this year. Anyway, you can check out my Season 1 and Season 2 reviews if you want to hear more about my thoughts on those. I'll put the links in the description. What I'm trying to explain here is simply that the positivity that accompanied most of my Lower Decks reviews might not be as present here, and I do hope that doesn't put you off too much. Please do note, however, that I'm not a close-minded, bitter, angry individual that dismisses Discovery at face value or simply because of its name. No, I review Star Trek Discovery like I review all of the other shows. I try to stay objective when it comes to technical aspects, and I try to simply judge the story based on, I suppose, the universe that it's set in. And so yeah, sometimes it gets me frustrated, but all of my reviews come from a place of honesty and of truth, just like with every other Star Trek iteration that I talk about. Now, without any further ado, let's talk about Star Trek Discovery, Season 3, Episode 1, That Hope Is You, Part 1. Keep in mind there are spoilers here on this channel. Alright, what did I think? Well, generally speaking, it wasn't bad. It was actually pretty good. There were a few cringe moments, a few things that could potentially be gaping plot holes, and some of the usual, dare I say, Discovery missteps, but the pacing worked well, the performances for the most part did also, the intrigue was nice, and a lot of those exterior shots were beautiful to behold. It is a bit frustrating to get yet another sort of reboot to the show. I don't like using that term, reboot, because it technically doesn't apply here, but you know what I mean. With this new season set 930 years in the future, the show has decided to begin anew, start fresh, if you will. And although that might not be a bad thing, it's already been done before with Season 2. Star Trek iterations of the past, like for example The Next Generation, also struggled at finding their footing in their earlier years, but they all managed to come into their own without having to radically change the course of the story and hit a hard reset button. Discovery, on the other hand, has done this twice now, and it's getting a bit old. Let's hope going forward we can expect some sort of stability. Now, going over the things I disliked first, and starting with the one thing that probably just comes down to personal taste, I didn't like Burnham's high moment. Not at all, actually. I didn't like Martin Green's performance or the way it was shot, even if I was impressed by the technical ability behind filming such a scene. I mean, the camera work was good, I just didn't think it necessarily fit with what I was seeing. And look, I do understand it was trying to be comedic, especially with the Tilly reference, but it all came across as more cringe than anything else, or at least to me. Others didn't think so, and that's fine. It's just I didn't enjoy that scene, and I truly wanted it to end. Which brings us to some more objective criticism. I do think the directing overall was kinda wonky. And this isn't a personal stab at Osunsanmi, I just think that sometimes the creative vision behind the aesthetic of Discovery is questionable. Everything has to be so dynamic and exciting all the time. Although, granted, this episode did a lot less of that than in the previous two seasons. But you know what? There's this other thing that bugs me. The show constantly feels the need to hold the audience's hand. Book and Burnham are on Book's homeworld, Sanctuary 4, and they're having a nice moment. They're talking about the animal they saved, the history of the planet, their personal stories, and the camera just won't stop moving. The whole scene was handheld, I don't understand why. Put the camera down, place it down, make the camera stop moving, and let the actors sell the scene. We don't need to be told by the camera work that things are getting personal. The fans aren't morons. They can read a moment without being informed as to what they're supposed to be feeling. Some of the edits were choppy also. When Burnham first crashes and gets out of her Red Angel suit, for example, she kneels, she spits, she breathes, she gets up. All of these individual segments were clearly shot separately and reassembled in post, and it shows. It shouldn't show, Anyway, going back to that thing about Discovery guiding its audiences in regards to how they're supposed to be feeling, another example would be the music at the end. When Burnham and Book meet this poor guy that's been attending this Federation desk for 40 years, emotional things are said. The dialogue is heavy, the performances are strong, and don't get me wrong, it's a really great moment. Sadly, the insistent and incessant music takes away from that. The score isn't bad, of course not. I actually enjoy the Discovery theme and the work Jeff Russo does. It's just that we get it. The moment is sad, and then the moment becomes important. I understand this because I'm a human with a brain. I don't need intense musical cues informing me on how I should feel. Again, the actors are professionals. Let them sell the scenes. This also applies to Burnham's Starfleet badge, by the way. They had to have her wear the jacket below the badge because it was evidently going to be addressed in the scene, although it makes no sense in real life to wear the jacket so open. I mean, they could have talked about the badge even with it being covered up. I mean, we still would have understood. They did the same thing with the necklace in Picard, by the way. It's always front and center in every shot just so Picard would talk about it and so we would remember it. I don't know. It doesn't really make sense. Anyway, the directing wasn't all bad though. No, far from it. I said it was wonky because there were ups and downs. That's right, there were also ups. The opening sequence, or rather the second one, the chase moment with Book flying through debris, was great. Okay, the dialogue was a bit cliche, but it was action-packed, loud, adrenaline-filled, and yet easy to read and comprehend, which was also the case for all of the other action sequences in the episode. They were panicked moments, but still visually pleasing. And holy shit, do we need to talk about those exterior shots? They were breathtaking. Those wide shots on the planet's surface, just wow. Filming on location in Iceland was just a fantastic idea, and it was beautiful to behold on screen. Seriously, those wide shots and those shots, you know, with the waterfall, great cinematography with all of those exterior scenes. It was fantastic. So thumbs up for that. Now, from a story standpoint, it was nothing extraordinary, but it was good. The episode served as an introduction to both the overarching narrative of this new season and to our new character, Book, and both were executed very well. I'm curious to learn about this distant future, and I'm already attached to this new witty character. I like the Han Solo vibe he gives off, and I very much enjoyed how he grew emotionally in regards to Burnham, this total stranger to him, you know, over the course of the episode. At first, he was hesitant to trust her, rather confused as to what even was going on, but over that short time they stayed together, he became more comprehensive of a situation and ended up opening up to her as well as helping her. Most of the visual effects worked really well. This scene maybe was a little weaker, like you can tell it's a CG ship and a CG creature, but the rendering remains top notch, and most importantly, there's not that blue filter or haziness to every CG scene like we've had in previous episodes of the show. And I know we're not supposed to care too much about this kind of stuff as the audience, you know, from an audience standpoint, but apparently Star Trek Discovery Season 3 is the first visual effects heavy show to have all of its post-production work, all of the computer generated work completed at home. So everyone was in quarantine and they didn't work as a team in the office, and so I congratulate everyone on their hard work and, you know, getting things done. So honestly, the show looks good. But that's not all on the CG artists. A lot of what we saw was very creative. From Book's ship design to the holographic parrot alarm clock, without forgetting the city they go to and the alien fauna. I have always wanted to see more alien wildlife in Star Trek. So these two insects, the fish, I love them all. And honestly, from a technological standpoint, setting Discovery this far in the future seems to have legitimately freed the creatives behind the show of the shackles binding them so forcefully. They can now do whatever the hell they want, explore their imagination to the fullest, without being tied up to this original series aesthetic that they clearly didn't enjoy in the first place. So it's nice. You can feel that through the episode. They're free, and it's nice. Even these reimagined aliens that are, come on, let's face it, clearly just their own versions of already existing species in the franchise that they have redesigned because they wanted to, well anyway, they can now be explained away simply as being hybrids. This is the year 3188. Of course, there's been interspecies breeding and romance. This Andorian could have the DNA of countless other species. We no longer have to do mental gymnastics to understand why we've never seen Andorians like him before. I also appreciated Sanctuary 4, Book's planet. I thought it looked pretty damn cool. It reminded me of that world in the opening scene of Into Darkness. Now, some stray comments would include Burnham killing people in cold blood. How do we all feel about that? It was self-defense, but I just wanted to hear your thoughts. This Andorian and this Orion had amazing chemistry. Their dialogue was so fun. I would completely watch a short treks about them. And another thing is, why was this guy acting so robotic when our protagonists first arrived? I almost thought he was a hologram himself, if not for the fact that he slept. Oh, and before we end this, I need to address these two potential plot holes. I say potential because maybe things will be explained later on, and one is a plot hole, one is more of a nonsensical thing. The nonsensical thing is when Book says time travel has been outlawed and all time travel technology has been destroyed. That is so stupid. Oh my god, is that dumb. If time travel exists, it doesn't fucking matter if you destroy all temporal related things now and in this time. It doesn't matter if you outlaw the damn time travel thing or ban it. People can still time travel from and to any other time. That's the whole concept of time traveling. It was a stupid thing to say. Anyway, baffling. Anyway, the plot hole is Romulans don't use dilithium to power their warp drives. They create artificial quantum singularities, or at least they did so in the Next Generation. I'm not saying creating a contained black hole is the safest option to make your ship go, but unless Discovery explicitly tells us why no one is using this type of technology, it will be a plot problem. And I say this because this episode seems to imply that the burn was something that affected all of the dilithium, and now dilithium is very rare, and so no one can use warp drive anymore, or only very rarely. I mean, even if the Romulans all died before, the burn, the technology and the knowledge of it still is present in the galaxy. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. Okay, that's it for the review. It wasn't the best episode of Star Trek, nor was it the best episode of Star Trek Discovery, but it definitely was a breath of fresh air. Some things remain the same from season to season, but somehow, and I know this is very abstract, this episode felt clearer than any other from this show. Almost as if the show had, up until now, been engulfed in some sort of fog or mist, and that fog has lifted. That fog has finally lifted. Does that make sense? Probably not. Anyway, it was a pretty good episode, and we'll see where the season goes. I almost regret that this wasn't just straight up episode 1 of the entire show. Anyway, let's move on to the Easter eggs and references. Starting with the title sequence. That's right, it's a new season, and so just like last time, Discovery decided to change up a few things to have the montage better reflect the current events, or the events of the season. We get these new Starfleet badges, a new, probably Starfleet phaser, Book's ship, and these little robot things that will probably arrive later on in the season. The final change is the actual logo. Yes, that's right, Discovery has an entirely new font. Moving on to the species that we either saw or heard mention of. These are Andorians, these are Orions, both introduced in the original series. This is a Cardassian, introduced in the Next Generation. Most of us thought that this guy was a Uridian, but nope, it was confirmed that he was an orc from Lord of the Rings. I'm kidding. He's a, however the hell you say that, Betagusian, bloody hell. An obscure species from the motion picture that has a name that is unpronounceable. We also see a couple of Lurians, the same species as Morn from Deep Space Nine. All of them are bald, and although there's no reason why they shouldn't be, it's fully possible that the Lurians that we're seeing are just, they just happen to be bald. I do think it's important to note that Morn was bald due to radiation poisoning. It's not necessarily a trait of his species. Finally, we get a mention of the Gorn hegemony, a species first introduced in the original series that people in the Federation from Burnham's time shouldn't really know about yet. So, yeah, maybe, I don't know how Burnham knows about the Gorn. This episode is confirmed to take place in 3188, 930 years after the events of Star Trek Discovery Season 2. The only two things that we've ever seen on screen that would take place after this are some of the moments from Voyager's episode Living Witness and the Short Trek's episode Calypso. I don't have any fixed dates on those as of now, but they do come after 3188. Multiple times we hear about dilithium crystals. These little reddish, sometimes pinkish crystals have been shown as an important part of Star Trek ships' propulsion for years and years in the franchise. We also hear about trilithium as well as banamites. Look, in every episode these things have been featured. They were either in an explosive or an engine related plot, but I couldn't tell you exactly what all of these made up things do or what they are. We do hear mention of tachyon solar sails, however, which are specifically from Deep Space Nine. They were an ancient way for the Bajorans to move around space. Book mentions the Gorn destroyed some of subspace. This is not a common thing, but it can happen. We've seen it happen before. We've heard about it, at least in Voyager's The Omega Directive. We get another nod at Deep Space Nine, or at least I'm assuming, when Book talks about the nearest natural wormhole. I mean, maybe he's talking about another wormhole, but from what I understand, they're not very common. So, yeah, it probably is that one. We also hear about temporal wars, which everyone in the fandom is just assuming is a reference to the temporal Cold War that we know about in Enterprise. To be fair, both the wormhole and the temporal war references are just really assumptions on my part and the rest of the fandom. Nothing confirms they are nods to Deep Space Nine and Enterprise, but it just makes sense that they would be. This is a Federation flag. It looks a bit different from those we've seen before. I don't know if it was redesigned for the sake of being redesigned, which is a thing Discovery does, or if actual in-universe changes happened to the Federation before the burn. The music heard in the opening is Mozart. Our friend Jörg from the Twitters spotted this written text as being the same as the Malkorians from the Next Generation episode First Contact. Also, due to him being completely insane, he actually took the time to translate it. Apparently it means no fee, welcome, order it now. The city Burnham and Book go to, I found, was reminiscent of that place that the Voyager crew ends up in that one episode Workforce. And finally, this is the second Star Trek episode 1 to feature a protagonist being swallowed and spat out by an alien creature. The other episode 1 was of course in Lower Decks. Alright, there we go. Star Trek Discovery Season 3 Episode 1 review, references, Easter eggs, the whole shebang. Thank you so much for watching. I hope my distaste for Discovery didn't come across too much. Look, it's going in a new direction, and I'm very intrigued to see where it's going. So let's hold on tight and strap up for the ride. Again, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends. The 2020 Halloween shirt, the Trek on the Tube limited edition shirt, is still available, so go out and get one. You can become a patron and help support this channel. Like all of these wonderful, fantastic people, you're the best, and live long and prosper.